There's always been a family of finches that have captivated my imagination, the Twinspots. Whether it's because of their beautiful colors or their very unique patterns with the polka dots along their flanks and belly, or whether it's because of how difficult they are to find in US aviculture, this species has always captivated my imagination. This family currently has 6 different species within the family: the rosy Twinspots, the Dybowskis, the Peters, the Duskies, the Browns, and the Greenback Twinspots. This is a family of finches that rarely makes its way into US aviculture, and out of these 6, the main ones that I've seen over the years rarely come in, sometimes in very small quantities, have been the Greenback Twinspots, the Dybowskis, and sometimes the Peter Twinspots. Out of these 6, I am currently working with 2, the Greenbacks and the Dybowskis. In this video, our main focus is going to be the Dybowski Twinspots. We're going to cover a variety of different topics, from how to sex them, to housing, diet and nutrition, and how to successfully breed this species. So let's start off with number 1, the most important thing, which is ending up with a true pair. After all, these birds look very similar, but they are dimorphic. Even though they have very similar color patterns, there is a distinguishable difference between the males and the females. We just have to know what to look for. So the main thing that you want to look for when sexing these birds is their belly. The males will have a good amount of dark feathers that will go from upper chest all the way down to their vent area, while the females will have more of a grayish style coloration feather in this area. And this is going to be the best way of sexing this species. If you grab them and flip them upside down, look at their underbellies. Males, as you can see here, will be dark. They'll have black feathers along this area, while the females will have more of a light grayish belly. Now that we know how to tell the difference between males and females, it's time to start pairing up. And one of the things that I like to do before pairing up is I like to grab the males and clip their wings. Now you might be asking why it is that I'm doing this. And first of all, let me start by saying that this is not something that hurts the bird at all. This causes no pain to the bird. It is no different than clipping the nails. But the main reason for clipping the wings of the males is because males tend to be extremely aggressive towards females, especially when you first pair them up. When I first started working with this species, that was one of the main problems that I had. I didn't know that males tended to be as aggressive as they are, and I paired up the pairs, put them in their long flights, and males would eventually start to chase the females around. Within a period of a week, I had 2 pairs where the males ended up killing the females. By clipping the wings, what you end up doing is handicapping the male, and what this does is it allows the female to get away from the male if he's overly aggressive. So is this something that it's necessary for every single pair? Well, no. I've noticed that I've had some pairs where males don't tend to be as aggressive as others, but it is something that I do in every single pair just to avoid problems. Okay, so now that we know how to identify the difference between the males and the females of this species, and we know that the males need trimming of the wings in order to not attack the females, how should we pair them up or set them up, and what type of cages or flights will these birds breed? Well, these birds are going to do very well in cages and in flights, but the main thing is to always keep them by themselves. The Dybowski Twinspots are not birds that mix very well with other species because of how aggressive they tend to be, not only towards the females of their own species, but also any other bird that displays red coloration. For this reason, I like to keep them alone in cages. The ones that you're seeing here are first generation cage bred from last season, and they're paired up for the first time this year in these 24x16 style cages. And as you guys can see, I already have 2 pairs that have started their nest. Now I give them 2 different options for nest. I give them these fake Christmas tree style limbs that I put on the cages for them to build their nest, and I also like to offer nest boxes, and I let them choose to see what they want to do. Now, as you can tell, one of the pairs earlier decided to build inside of the nest box, while this pair in particular here decided that they wanted to use the fake tree as their nest. It's always good to give them options, so the more different nest sites that you're able to offer the birds will give you a better success at actually getting these birds to breed for you, since some may prefer nest boxes over the Christmas tree limbs and others may be backwards. For me this year, breeding in the 24x16 is the first time, and it is an experiment. Last year while I was working with the wildcats, I had to breed them in larger flights like the ones that you see here. And these are normal 32x18 size cages, and what I ended up doing was combining two of them together to form 54-inch flights. Now these flights were perfect for these wildcat birds because these required a lot more space in order to breed. So the main question that you have to ask yourself with your birds is, are they wildcat or are they first generation cage bred or so on? If your birds are wildcat, you're going to have better success at breeding them in larger flights like the ones that you're seeing here. But if the birds are cage bred, they may perform very well in smaller size cages like the ones that I have them in now. When it comes to diet and nutrition, a well-balanced diet is necessary in order to get these birds stimulated enough to breed, whether they're first generation or wildcats. The main thing to remember with this species and many other African species is to offer a good source of protein. In my case, I never offered any of these birds any live food because the majority of them were indoors. And the birds that I keep indoors do not get live food, but they do get fresh egg food along with freeze-dried insects, like bloodworms, mealworms, and black soldier ant pupae. And this was enough to stimulate all of these pairs to actually go ahead and start breeding. But like with many other finch species, it can be a bit complicated to actually get them to raise and take care of their young. I had some pairs that did extremely well when it came time to feeding the young, weaning them, and flanging them out of the nest, but other pairs were horrible parents and ended up tossing the chicks out. So you have to be prepared for situations like this when the parents end up tossing the chicks, and one of the best ways to save the chicks is to actually put them under the care of society finches. Now, society finches are great at fostering a variety of different finch species, and the Dybowskis are no exception. As you can see, the Dybowski chicks tend to be a lot darker than the majority of other finches, like for example Australian finches, but the societies do tend to feed them. One of the problems that I did encounter though at the beginning while fostering with the society finches with those chicks that were being abandoned is that the societies did not want to feed for the first 4 days. So in order to keep these chicks alive, I had to hand feed for the first 3 to 4 days. I would still keep them underneath the society pair, but I would occasionally take them out during the day and feed them at least 3 to 4 times during that day. About 4 days after, on the 4th day or the 5th day of being underneath the societies, I noticed that the societies began feeding. And this was something that didn't just happen with one pair, it happened with more than one pair. I noticed that usually around day 4 or day 5, they would start to feed these chicks. So some of them did have to get hand feeding in order to survive. Now, all of them didn't go through this problem. There were other societies that from day 1 would feed perfectly fine. And I've heard breeders say that there are a couple tricks to get around this problem. One of them being making sure that you have societies that have never raised any chicks in the past, so they don't know how the chicks are supposed to look and they are more willing to accept these darker chicks. Another method is to use societies that are albinos or whites, and these usually have poor eyesight, so they will accept the chicks a little bit better than a society that can see the chick and see how dark it actually is. The upside to having some of these chicks fostered underneath the societies was that I was able to see their development in the nest from a very early age, and it also gave me an opportunity at close banding the chicks. Since they weren't underneath their natural parents, I didn't have to worry about pulling them out and close banding them because the societies would not abandon. Like many of you know, when the chicks are with the biological parents, it is very difficult to pull them out and close band them because you always run the risk of having the parents abandoned. But don't worry, if you have them under the biological parents and you can't get them banded during the time that they're in the nest, you can always band once the chick fledges a nest. During this time, the parents are a little bit more willing to accept you interfering with the chicks because the chicks are so big that they will continue to chase the parents and beg, and they'll continue to feed. Alright guys, well this is going to be the end of the video. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this tutorial and learned a little bit more about this beautiful species. Hopefully others in the future can begin to work with it so that we don't end up losing it in US aviculture. If you are working with the species, I'm very interested in knowing if you're here in the US or if you're out of the country. Go to the comment section down below. Let me know how many pairs you have and how your success has been with the species lately. Like always, if you've enjoyed the video, remember to hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't done it already, as this continues to show me your support. Like always, I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and we will see each other in the next video.